of Allah's Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, إذا جاء Ramadan, when Ramadan comes. Then with regard to the name Ramadan, the name of the month, the 9th month of the year, obviously at the moment we're in the 7th month, the month of Rajab, halfway through, then the 9th month of the year, Ramadan. Then with regard to the naming of the month Ramadan, then Mullah Ali al-Qari said in Miraqat al-Mafatih, his explanation of Mishkat, he said, إذا جاء Ramadan, when Ramadan comes, meaning when the time of its month comes, and it is taken from al-Ramadan. It's taken from the word al-Ramadan. As we'll see, it refers to hot ground that's become heated by the sun, become very hot. He said it's derived from al-Ramadan, and there occurs in the dictionary al-Qamus, Ramida, Yawmuna, our day has Ramida. It is said our day has Ramida when it has become severely hot and a person's foot becomes burnt from the Ramadan, from the heat of the ground, referring to the ground that is severely hot. And the month of Ramadan is called this because when they transposed the names of the months from the ancient language, in the language originally, Arabic language originally, when they took the names of the months from older languages, then they gave them names after the times of the year in which they fell. And it, meaning Ramadan, it conformed at that time to the time of heat. So they called it Ramadan, the time of heat. Or, he gives a second explanation, or it can refer to Ramida Sa'im, that the fasting person, Ramida, when the heat of his abdomen becomes hot, when the heat of his belly becomes severe. Some of them mention meaning on account of his hunger and his thirst, that his heat of his abdomen becomes hot. He said, or, he gives a third explanation, because it burns away sins, or because it burns away sins. As for the phrase Futtihat Abwabul Jannah, that the gates of paradise are opened or are thrown open, and Al-Qurtubi said in his explanation of Muslim Al-Mufhim, Futtihat, with a kasra on the ta only, Futtihat, or with a shadda, Futtihat. It's narrated both ways, Futtihat or Futtihat. It's open, they are opened, or they are thrown open. He said, and it is correct to take it to be a reality. And what he's referring to is that some of the earlier scholars, some of them said the hadith is a reality as it stands. That's the reality. Some of them say that we take it to be a way of saying something, but not actually literally that the doors of paradise are opened. So Al-Qurtubi brings the correct saying. He said it is correct to take it to mean that it is an actual reality, and its meaning then is that paradise will be opened and adorned, decorated for one who dies in the month of Ramadan because of the virtue of this worship which occurs in it. Likewise, on the same point, Futtihat Abwabul Jannah, and the gates of paradise are opened. Al-Qustalani said in his explanation of Sahih al-Bukhari, Irshad al-Sari, he said, as a reality for one who dies in it. The gates of paradise are opened, he said, in reality for one who dies within it, or does an action which does not become corrupted for him, or that it is a sign for the angels for the entry of this month, and to show the tremendousness of its honor. and to prevent the devils from causing harm to the believers. And he said, Ibn al-Arabi said, referring here, of course, to Ibn al-Arabi al-Maliki. And you find this quote in his explanation about Tirmidhi. He said, Ibn al-Arabi said, and this shows that they were previously closed. The gates of paradise will be opened. This shows that they were previously closed. And this is also indicated by a further hadith, where the Prophet ﷺ said, so I will come to the gate of paradise, and it will be knocked. So the gatekeeper will say, who? Who is it? So I will say, Muhammad. So he will say, I was commanded with regard to you that I should not open it for anyone besides you, or rather anyone before you. I should not open it for anyone before you. Also on the same phrase, Futihat Abwab al-Jannah, that the gates of paradise will be opened. Then Al-Imam as-Sindi said in his notes to the Sunan of An-Nasa'i, meaning, so that mercy, rahmah, may be brought close to the servants. And therefore for this reason there occurs in some of the narrations Abwab al-Rahmah, that the gates of mercy will be opened. And in some of them there occurs Abwab al-Sama, the gates of the heaven, the gates of the sky. As for the phrase غُلِّقَتْ أَبْوَابُ النَّارِ, the gates of the fire will be locked. Then again, as Sindi said in his notes to the Sunan of An-Nasa'i, meaning to put punishment further away from the servants. And this necessitates that the gates of the fire were previously open. And this is not negated by his saying, He the Most High, حَتَّى إِذَا جَاءُوهَا فُتِحَتْ أَبْوَابُهَا, Surah Az-Zumar, the 39th Surah, Ayah 71, with the explanation. Until when they come to it, when they come to the fire, then its gates will be opened. He said this ayah doesn't contradict what we've just said, because it is possible that they will be closed prior to that. And we understand from this that in Ramadan the gates are closed, but that doesn't contradict what occurs in the ayah. Then he said, and the closing of the gates of the fire does not negate the fact that disbelievers die in Ramadan, and it does not negate their being punished with the fire during Ramadan, since it will be sufficient for their punishment that even a small gate is opened from the grave to the fire, which is other than the well-known major gates. As for the phrase وَصُفِّدَتِ الشَّيَاطِينَ, and the devils will be tied up or bound. And again, as Sindi, he said in his notes to the Sunan of An-Nasa'i, meaning they'll be tied up and they'll be bound with iron chains. And in one narration, sulsilat, they'll be chained up. And this has the same meaning, he said. Then he said, and this does not negate the fact that sins still occur. In the fact that the devils are chained up in Ramadan, it doesn't negate the fact that sins will still occur. Since the presence of sins, sufficient in that regard, is evil souls, that people have evil souls and foul souls. And it is not essential that every sin occurs on account of a devil. Doesn't follow that every sin that happens, there has to be a devil behind it. Otherwise, then there would have to be a devil behind every devil as well. I mean, every devil who does an evil action, there'd have to be another devil behind him. And then a whole chain of them. I mean, this is not a correct saying. I mean, every sin, there has to be a devil behind it, because then every action of a devil, every evil action of a devil, there'd have to be another devil behind him and another one behind that. And that's clearly not the case. He said, because it is also well known that Iblis, there was no devil behind him, prompting him. So the sin that he committed was not except from himself. And Allah, the Most High, knows best. I mean, in other words, the fact that the devils are chained in Ramadan, it doesn't mean that sins will come to an end, because there are other reasons for sin to occur. As he said, people's evil souls, for example. On the same point, Al-Aini, Imam Badruddin Al-Aini said, in his explanation of Al-Bukhari, Umdatul Qari, he said, what is meant is that evils will be reduced in it. I mean, the fact that the devils are chained, the result of this is what? The result is that evils will be reduced in it in the month. And this is something that is noticed. For that happening, sin happening, it is noticed that it is less than at other times. And it is said, it doesn't necessarily mean from the fact that they are bound and chained, all of them, that evils will not occur and sins will not occur, because there are other reasons for that, other than the devils, such as foul souls and evil habits and the devils from amongst mankind. Finally, on the same point, even though there's some slight length to it, because this is a point which people very, very often ask the question about, the point about sins occurring in Ramadan, how can sins occur in Ramadan when the devils are chained? So on the same point, and then Al-Qurtubi said in his explanation of Muslim Al-Mufhim, he said, صُفِّدَتِ الشَّيَاطِينَ, the devils will be bound up, meaning they will be chained and bound. And that is so that the devils do not cause trouble, do not cause corruption to those people who are fasting. So if it is said, but we see evils and sins still occurring frequently in Ramadan, so if the devils were actually chained up, then evil would not occur. He said, then the response is from a number of aspects. And he mentions 3 aspects. Firstly, he said, is they are only chained up and chained away from those people who are fasting. Fasting with a fast which they take care of, fulfilling its conditions, and which they fulfill the manners of. But as for a person who does not observe it correctly, then the devil is not chained up from that person. He's not chained up and chained away from that person. He said, giving a second aspect, a second answer, he said that even if we accept that they are chained up for every person who is fasting, then even then, all of the devils being chained up does not mean that evil will not occur, because there are other reasons for evil to occur besides the devils. And again he made the point, he said, such as people's evil souls and despicable habits and the devils from amongst mankind, I mean the human devils. Then he gives a third aspect and said that these reports refer to most of the devils, and the marada, and those most rebellious ones who are devoted to evil from them. I mean, not all the devils, just these particular ones. Most of the devils, and those who are the marada, the most rebellious ones from them, those who are devoted to evil from amongst them. But as for those who are not the most rebellious ones, then they are not chained up. So what is required is reduction of evils. And that is certainly present in the month of Ramadan, because the occurrence of evils and immoral acts in it is very little in comparison to other months. Then he makes a point and he says, and it is also said that the opening of the gates of paradise and the closing of the gates of the fire is a sign for the entry of this tremendous month, a sign for the angels and for the people of paradise, so that they can feel the tremendousness and greatness of this month. And it is possible that it be said that these gates that are opened in this month are that which Allah has legislated in it from the acts of worship and the adhkar, words of remembrance, and the prayers and the recitation, since all of these lead to the opening of gates to paradise for those who do them, and lead to the closing of gates towards the fire for them, and the chaining up of the devils is an expression showing the breaking or the limiting of the desires of people's souls, which are things which the devils use. People's desires are used by the devils to entice people away and to lead them astray. And this is borne witness to by his saying, in the saying of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, "As-sawmu junnah," fasting is a shield. A hadith reported by Imam Ahmad and An-Nasa'i from a hadith of Uthman ibn Abi al-As, and declared sahih, authentic by Shaykh al-Albani. And finally, on this point, with regard to the closing, or rather with regard to the chaining of the devils, then Al-Hafidh ibn Hajar, in Fathul Bari, he mentions a large number of sayings and he brings some speech, and within that he says, and someone else said, the chaining up of the devils in Ramadan contains an indication to the excuse of a person being removed from him. So it is as if it is being said to him, the devils have been chained up and kept away from you, so do not use them as an excuse for leaving off obedience, nor for committing a sin. As for the points of benefit that can be taken from the hadith, then amongst them are the following 4 points of benefit. And all of them are from the same source, all 4, from Sheikh Muhammad ibn Ali al-Ethiopi in his explanation of Sunan al-Nasa'i, al-Dhikhirat al-Uqba. So he said, firstly, that this hadith shows an explanation of the virtue of the month of Ramadan. The second point of benefit he mentions is that it shows affirmation of al-Jannah wa nar, affirmation of the paradise and the fire, and that they are present now in existence, and that they have gates which are opened and closed. The third point of benefit he mentioned is affirmation of the presence of devils, shayateen, and that they are physical beings with bodies which can be tied up and chained, or they can be tied up with chains, and that amongst them there are marada, rebellious ones devoted to evil, which are chained up with chains in the month of Ramadan. so that they do not nullify the deeds of those people who fast. And the fourth point of benefit he mentioned is an explanation of the tremendousness of the kindness of Allah the Most High, and His vast generosity, and His beneficence, His fine treatment towards His servants, in that He safeguards their fasting for them and repels from them the harm of the rebellious devils, so that they do not cause corruption to their acts of worship in this blessed month, in which good deeds are multiplied and slips of the servants are reduced.